Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Our live with Ashley and Kyle, who sometimes speaks in the third person. Happy Friday if you're watching this with us live. And if you're watching the recording, I hope you're having a great day, whatever day of the week it is. We have a live product demo today, along with a Ask Me Anything. And when I say me, I mean Ashley. So I hope that you all brought your questions and are ready to take a tour through TeamCare.
So Kyle, we need to call it a triple A. Ask Ashley anything.
I love that. AAA.
Triple
That is
A.
so good. That is so good. And Ashley don't sleep on Ashley as a marketer because she's got some zingers. And I'm going to hand it over to Ashley right now, who's going to be leading this session. Ashley is doing this every day, both as a practice growth specialist for TeamCare and then also as an office manager for Morabito Family Dental. So, Ashley, ready for you to take it away.
Thanks, Kyle. So yes, like you said, I am a practice manager, manage our family's office in Annapolis. Our family had an office in Virginia for over 20 years, and then we decided that we wanted to establish our new home up in Annapolis. And so we bought this location a little over 3 years ago and sold the Virginia one. And we've just been seeing some tremendous growth year over year. One of the reasons that we want to grow is we have a heart for giving back to others. And I also have a nonprofit, the Leaderboard Foundation. We do local give back days as well as international mission trips. And so our goal is to be able to do more trips each year. But in order for that to happen and in order for it to be sustainable, we need to be able to grow our practice so it can run without us actually there. So I just wanted to dive into some of our stats on our dashboard and how you can also influence that growth in your office. I'll share my screen real quick. All right. So like I said, these are stats from our office. So we did buy in 2022 at the end of the year. And as you'll be able to see, we've been seeing some tremendous growth. This is the lifetime stats, which is one of my favorite graphs to look at. And you can actually toggle on and off the different aspects of it. So if you want to start from the base, we're looking at the total hygiene appointments we have here. And you can see last month we did hit a record high for us, 516. So our team was very excited about that. And as we toggle the different aspects on, we can see the number of new patients in teal and then the number of lost patients in red. And you want to make sure that the teal is always higher than the red. That way, the number of patients coming in is always greater than the number of patients leaving. And then that is where you'll see the growth month over month in the upward trajectory there. With this insights portion, we like to say that we're not just reporting the metrics, we're also moving them. So yes, this is a pretty graph to look at, but how are we actually influencing it? Oftentimes when you look at a metric at the end of the month, it's too late to change it. So we'd like to look at them on a daily or weekly basis. That way we can influence the metrics. So one of the ways that we can do this is we're growing our hygiene department. So if you grow hygiene, you're going to grow profit. One of the biggest aspects to this is the patients that are coming in for their appointments. You want to make sure they're always leaving with their next appointment. So the first number I'm going to look into is our pre-appointment percentage. And there's two different ways to look at this. There's one, which is going to be if they come in for a hygiene appointment, are they leaving with a hygiene appointment? And then the other one is if they come in for a restorative appointment, like a limited exam, are they then leaving with a hygiene appointment? We want to make sure that we're converting those patients. So here you'll see our pre-appointed percentage is at 94%. The target for most offices is going to be between 95 to 97%. 97% is ideal. So you can see we are a little bit low, but then I can dive in a little bit deeper to see, okay, who wasn't pre-appointed and is there a reason why they weren't pre-appointed? And so you can see over here, there was 14 patients that came in that weren't pre-appointed. And then they have reasons. I'll show you later in our checkout features, our complete care section, of where my team is going to enter the notes of why they didn't schedule. And so there was an issue with this person leaving for college and scheduling with breaks. So there's always has to be a reason for why they didn't schedule the next appointment.
So, Ashley, I just want to stop you there for a second. A lot of practices, and if you're watching this and you want to chat your pre-appointment rate, let us know what your pre-appointment rate is. Or if you want to be super vulnerable and say, I actually don't know what our pre appointment rate is because a lot of practices don't, and that's okay. We make it super easy for you to understand what your pre appointment rate is. And then Ashley gave a benchmark, 97%, I think you said, is what you're striving
Mhm.
for. And if you don't hit that, it's super easy to go in and see on a per patient basis what's happening and why. And so, and as you just mentioned, it's a little bit lower right now because going back to school, right?
Yeah. Um, And so thank you, Kyle. And so there's different ways that we can coach our team on how to increase that percentage. Like I like to explain to them, we don't want to ask the patient, do you want to schedule your next appointment? That means they're going to have to opt into it. We want to give them an opt out. So we want to say, let's get you scheduled for your next appointment. And then you can give them 2 or 3 options for them to select for. Or go ahead and give them, hey, we're going to go ahead and schedule you for this date and this time, and then they can give some pushback at that point. Um, we hear this all the time. Oh, I don't know what my schedule is in 6 months. I don't either. I have no idea what my schedule is going to be like. And so we let them know, hey, we're going to use this as a reminder. You're going to start getting the appointment reminders about 2 weeks before. And if we need to adjust, no problem. Just give us a call and we can adjust that. This is a great way to increase your pre-appointed percentage. And like I said, you can look at this as hygiene to hygiene, but then also if they came in for restorative, are they getting booked back into the hygiene? A lot of the patients that come in for limited exams, they're coming just on emergency basis and they're not keeping up with their oral health. So it's the best thing for the patient to make sure that we're getting them back on the schedule. They're routinely coming in for their cleanings, and they're getting back in that rhythm. And then avoiding future emergency appointments, hopefully. So that's the best thing for the patient to make sure they're keeping up with their appointments. One of the next things I like to look at is the number of new patients. And so as you can see here, we've already seen 73 new patients. It's the 15th of the month, which is great. Um, One of the things that's important on this screen for me is the average duration. That's how long it takes from when the patient actually calls to make the appointment to when the appointment was scheduled for. So right now, this is a little bit longer than what I would like. My goal is to be at 7 days. Most of my patients, I want them to come in within 24 hours. So this kind of points to if there's a capacity or an availability issue. And this is something I had identified. I had a hygienist out on maternity leave. I had hired a new one that didn't have her license yet. So we were a little low on what available appointments I actually had. But I've been able to address that. So moving forward, we should see this average duration go down. So I identified what the issue was, and then I was able to solve it. But I couldn't identify it if I didn't have TeamCare here to show me those numbers. Um, so then you can dive a little bit deeper into this as far as if we are on pace for what our goal is. And you can see here we're way over our pace, which is amazing. And then where those patients are getting scheduled. Are they getting scheduled at the times that I want them to be offered most, which would be prime time? Kyle, do you know what prime time is?
I was actually just about to ask you, Ashley, what do you mean by prime time?
Yeah. You're going to see this lots of different places all over Teen Cares. You're going to see prime time or non prime time. You see it here at the top. So 34 of my patients were scheduled into prime time. So a lot of patients don't want to take off of work or school to come for their dental cleanings, but they will for a restorative appointment. So we heavily book hygiene appointments during those prime time. So that's my 7 a.m. slot, my 5:30, 6:30 p.m. slot, and all day Saturday. We're only doing cleanings. We're not doing any restorative work. It's just doing cleanings. So all of my hygienists are double booked during that time to be able to do as many cleanings as possible. So I want to make sure that my team is offering those prime time spots first. And then you can see down here, again, diving deeper into the average duration, how many patients are actually scheduled in those different categories, and then being able to identify who those patients are. And you can go and look to see if your team wrote any notes. Sometimes they are specifically asking for certain days, and that's okay. There's always going to be those select few, but you want to make sure majority of your patients are coming in sooner than later. I like to think of it as if you go to a store, if you walk in and there's nothing on the shelf, there's nothing that the store can sell. But if it's a fully stocked shelf, then you can actually sell things. So that's how it is for our appointments. If I don't have the appointments available, then I can't offer them to my patients. So I need to make sure I have plenty of appointments available. for them. And then one of my favorites is the hygiene dashboard. And I can see the total number of hygiene patients that I've seen already this month and then what has already what's scheduled out. So I can look to the future to see, am I going to be on pace for what I want for my goal for the month? And you can see here the goal that's been set was 418 and I'm projected to be at 492. So I'm way over pace, which is great.
Ashley, how are you going in and manually adjusting your goals, or are you just letting the team care calculation run its thing?
Yeah, I let TeamCare do the calculation for me. And so that is calculated as a 3-month trailing average for all of the goals. Whenever you're setting goals, you want to make sure that it's uh, a reach in order to meet, but it's not too far that it's not attainable because then your team's going to feel defeated that you've set way too high of a goal that they're never going to be able to achieve. So I personally like the 3-month trailing average. It's less calculations on my end. And that means you're always going to be continued growth because it's always going to set it higher and higher as they reach those different goals.
Awesome.
Saves me time. I don't like doing more calculations.
Who does?
Yeah. So then the other board I'd like to look at is the leaderboard for the hygienist. And this is going to pull up all your hygienists, the number of patients that they've seen, how many days they've worked, and then the average per day. So like I said, we do have those prime time hours, and during that time, they are seeing double hygiene. And so we're able to make sure that our goal for them is higher than typically. So we want to make sure that hygienists are at least seeing one patient per hour. And if you can do more than that, great. So our clinical shifts are 6 hours. And so you can see all my hygienists are seeing more than 6 patients per day. And they're incentivized to do so. So they're working harder. I want to make sure that they're also getting paid more. So I'll show you that in the incentive section. But if you're able to increase this, like if you're only seeing on it's an 8-hour shift and you're seeing that this average per day is like 5, you want to see, okay, how can we get more patients in their chairs? How can we increase that average per day? If you increase it just 2 more patients per day, then that's 25% increase in number of patients and then a 25% increase in the production. So it's a win-win for both the hygienists and the office. So those are a couple different ways that I'm looking at how we can grow hygiene. And then again, in turn, that grows profit. One of my favorite things is the reactivations, which is a whole nother section. And so this is talking about closing that back door. The first one was with the pre-appointment. The second one is the reactivations. So this is going to pull all of your patients that have not been in the office for over 6 months. This is a live list. So my team works off of this list. There's no list that I have to print out that gets outdated. It's just on here constantly. So you come in here and you're going to look at the patient that's overdue and you can make an attempt. It's preloaded with the script. I have modified mine. That way I can have more information here for my team and offer different scripts for different situations. So you have that ability as well. And then you're going to mark the outcome. If a voicemail was left, you would set when you want that follow-up to take place. I believe the default is set to 7 days. I have personally extended that out further. And so you have that freedom to do that as well. Or if they scheduled, then you'd be marking what that next appointment was, or if they denied. Either way, if you want to follow up with a text message, you can do that as well. And you'd click yes. And it's going to give you the script that's already personalized for that person. It already put that person's name in the text message for me. I have a booking link so they can schedule online. It put that in there as well. So I would just copy this message and then paste it into the platform that I use to send text messages. So we don't send the text messages through TeamCare. They are sent directly from whatever you use for text. This just gives you the preloaded message that you would just copy and paste. Once those call attempts are made, they are tracked in the call log. And so you can take a quick glance here to see what the attempts were made, what the results of them were, and if there were any notes that were made. You can also look at this on the leaderboard where it's broken down per person that's making those calls. And so you can see the number of attempts that have been made, the number of upcoming appointments that there are. So if they're on the schedule for the future, you can see them here listed. Or if they've already attended their appointment, you can see that as well. And so I can click here that this person has had 7 attended appointments from the attempts that they've made. I can see when the attempts were made and then when the appointment actually took place.
Ashley, how many calls should an office make each month?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we like to say if your average number of hygiene appointments are for the previous month, so we saw 516 last month, we should be making 516 this month. Now we are a newer office, so I don't have as much backlog for those outstanding appointments. But many offices there's like 7,000 patients that are overdue. But you should be making the number of appointments from the previous month. If that makes sense.
Cool.
Yeah. And so then you want to see, okay, from those appointments, how many are coming back and then what is the value of those patients? And so you can see that here in the patient value tab. And so you can see in the month of June, I had these patients come back, I had 18 patients come back, and I can see what was actually produced from those appointments that they came back and then the next 60 days. So I was able to see 18 patients and then we produced 13,000.
Wow. And so these are patients that probably would have never come back if they weren't called off of the reactivation list.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that no one likes cold calling people. No one likes picking up the phone. We know it's super painful for a lot of offices and they have a hard time getting their team to do it. So, how does your team do it? Why is your team so good at reactivation?
I incentivize them.
You
Uh,
incentivize them.
yeah, yeah. So, old school method, I used to pay per call, but there was no tie to the result of it. So I was just paying them to make a certain amount of calls. So with TeamCare, I'm actually able to tie the incentive, the badge to an attended appointment. And so it's super easy to set up. On the same hygiene reactivation tab, I have the incentives here. I currently have it published, but I'm going to show you how to build it real quick. So you set a dollar amount. In my office, I do 15, but I would say majority of the offices are closer to 10. And then you just set for the duration that you want this to be live. You select the number, or you select the team members that you want to be involved. I have everybody involved in this. Anybody can pick up the phone and make a call. It's simple training on phone script and making sure you've just done a little bit of research on those patients, and then you publish it. And this sends an announcement email out to the team of the badge that you've made live, and it'll go to them. It's set that it's defaulted off, so it's not going to send the email unless you toggle this on. My team already knows about this, so I'm just going to click publish it without sending the email.
So, Ashley, in the reactivation attended dashboard that you just showed us, where 18 patients were reactivated, generating, I think, an incremental over $13,000. So 18 times $15, which is 270, is the investment that the practice has to make as far as incentivizing their team. The return on investment was 13,000.
Mm-hmm.
Correct? Am I looking
Yep.
at that right? Okay.
Yep, exactly. And if you haven't been making the reactivation calls yet, you wouldn't see these stats here until you actually have those patients attended. So Kyle actually built something really cool. He built a ROI calculator, which is live on our website right now. And Kyle, if you want to drop that link in the chat for them. So I'm just going to show you how to use it. If we say, like we said, we started 500 patients last month. And so that's the number of calls that I'm going to want to be made moving forward. And then the average production per hygiene visit. So I think we were closer to 850. And then I pay my team 15, but most offices, again, pay 10. So here we can see the total number of calls that were going to be made. The conversion percentage is about 10% for what we see across most offices. Some see higher. I think I've seen upwards of 20 to 25%, but be conservative, we're going to say 10%. So then 50 patients actually schedule and are seen from that. And that's $42,000 in monthly revenue just generated from those reactivation calls, or $510,000 per year, 85 ROI. I think that's a pretty good investment.
I agree.
Yeah. So if we tie the incentive towards the attended appointment, it gets your team involved in wanting to see the interest of the outcome of the call to be them actually scheduled and coming in. So I've touched on a bunch of different aspects for hygiene. We want to make sure that we want the door open to be for new patients, but we also want to make sure the back door gets closed. So you can market a ton, but if you're not able to retain those patients, then you're just watching them walk right out the back door along with all of the money that you spent on marketing. So you need to make sure you close that back door in order to see that growth. So we saw the first incentive that I talked about for the hygiene reactivation. There's a couple other that I want to touch base on. I'm not going to dive too deep into this one. Kyle can drop the link to my webinar 2 weeks ago that I dove more into incentives, and you guys can go back and watch that. I'm just going to touch on the two that are going to be influencing the hygiene the most in my office. First is going to be our hygienist wage. Like I said, I pay per patient. So they do have an hourly base, but then I do a bonus per patient. And this number is going to be different for each office. So you would just select, these aren't my actual office numbers. I'm just showing what you could do. And you could even say, if it's a primetime patient, I want to pay them more. And TeamCare is going to automatically pull all of this information from your software to show, okay, this is the number of completed appointments, when they were scheduled, and do all those calculations for you. I did this for many years before TeamCare was around, and it was a pain in the butt to go and count the appointments and do the math myself before I do payroll. The last thing I want to do is make payroll more difficult for myself. So it's been amazing working with TeamCare and how it auto calculates everything for them. So I can easily see what I need to put in payroll. The other one I want to highlight is this new one that I've added is the full Saturday hygiene schedule. And this was inspired from a couple other offices I was speaking with, as well as our marketing company. And I want to give a brief success story from it. So last Tuesday, I was looking at Saturday's schedule, and it was probably half empty. And I was not okay with that. I was like, this is not good. Everybody's going to be sitting around, twiddling their thumbs, driving each other crazy. Doctors are going to go crazy. So I want to make sure that schedule gets filled. And so I told my business team, who's in charge of making sure that schedule gets filled, if you fill it and keep it full, then each of you are going to get $100. And so I allowed for a little bit of wiggle room for some fall off, because I don't allow them to overbook, because I don't have an extra room. And the last thing I want is a patient to be sitting there waiting. So if I had an extra room, I might allow them to overbook to compensate for that. But I gave them, pretty strict details. If there's 8 columns of hygiene, we need to see 42 patients. If there was 4 columns of hygiene, we need to see 21 patients at the end of the day. And so Friday night, I was away on a conference, and I received a text from one of the girls, and they said, "Hey, schedule's full." I was like, "This is amazing. I just told them on Tuesday, and now the schedule's already filled." They were very close to hitting goal. We had a little too much fall off the day of. I think they were like 1 or 2 appointments away. But this is something I'm definitely going to continue with for future Saturdays as well. So that's hoping to drive those hygiene appointments.
I love that. You can pay your team members hourly to show up, and you can incentivize them to do the job well.
Yeah. Yeah. And then it's a win-win for everybody. Yeah. I tell them in the hiring process, I want to make sure that they're well taken care of as we continue to grow and succeed. I want to share that with them. But I can't just do flat hourly increases all the time, because I have no guarantee of results. And so I tie the increases to results. So that is an example of a badge. And then the last section here is the goals. All of these goals are related to the KPIs from the Insights tab, and you can select whichever one you want to target. They're all listed here. And so at one point, I wanted to make sure that we were pushing the primetime hygiene appointments. And so I had created different checkpoints that if we hit these different number of appointments, then they would receive a bonus. And so I started at 95% of goal, and I increased it from there. And for each tier, they would receive a bonus. And so if we saw 207 appointments, then they would get $75. And so this doesn't, it's not cumulative. It's just, if you hit this tier, this is what your bonus was. And so we were able to see a huge increase in the number of primetime hygiene appointments that we were receiving. I don't have all of these incentives live all the time. I rotate them to keep it fresh. So I might have one live for 1 month, for 3 months, for 6 months, and I rotate them through based off of what I'm trying to drive from what I'm seeing on the Insights tab. So if I'm seeing an issue come up, I'm going to heavily incentivize that to see an increase, instead of having all of these go at the same exact time. So then lastly is going to be our checkouts. This is going to lead into our complete care aspect and treatment planning. And so we can see here the list of patients that are on the schedule for today. And we're going to go and we're going to process checkouts for them. So the first thing at the top here that you'll see is the hygiene pre-appointment. It's automatically pulling in what their next appointment is, and it's congratulating whoever's doing this. Great, they're pre-appointed. If they weren't pre-appointed, it would have a box here that I would have to type an explanation. So you have to really think about, why didn't that person pre-appoint? So this is another way to drive home with your team that we're making sure they're getting pre-appointed. Every step of the way, we want to drive this home. Walk out with the next appointment. And then you see the prime time green badge here as well. The next section down here with treatment planning, I'm not going to dive too much into this today, but if you listen to our next webinar, I'm going to dive into this section some more. But if we present a treatment plan, I can leave the result of that. So whether they scheduled or they deferred or they denied the treatment, I can leave notes here. As well as if I didn't present, if they were healthy, they were referred out, they're not discussed. All of this information gets sent to the doctor at the end of the evening in an email, so they can see the results of all of their exams that they did that day. A lot of times they're juggling multiple patients at the same time, doing hygiene checks, seeing their restorative patients, and they don't necessarily know what the result of those exams were. So this makes it super clear for them. Okay, we did this exam, I didn't present, they were healthy. Or I did present and they're scheduled on this date. Presented, they deferred, and this is why. And maybe there's an explanation of they didn't understand the treatment. And so maybe the doctor is then calling the patient and explaining a little bit more. We need to give them a little more patient education. Or their concern was finances. Maybe we need to talk to them more about outside financing through charity or care credit, or an in-house payment plan, or breaking up the treatment, making it comfortable for them. So this gives a really clear summary to the doctor, everything that was done that day, so they know what to look forward to in their schedule coming up. And all the results of that also show up on the leaderboard for the doctors in the treatment plan section here. So the amount that was presented, the presented percentage. So we look at this as up at bat. So if you did 10 exams, how many of them did you present treatment to? We would say the target is about 50%. If we're seeing this go way too high, that's a little concerning. Maybe we're presenting too much or too little. And so we can use this as a coaching mechanism for doctors to figure out, okay, why aren't we presenting? Where are we presenting too much? And then of those treatment plans that were presented, how many of those actually scheduled for appointments? And so 80%, 85% is a good scheduled percentage. And then what's the average treatment amount? So we're going to dive some more into this at our next webinar on October, was it September 5th?
September 5th, 12 p.m. Eastern.
Yeah. So Kyle, did we have any questions?
We didn't have any questions come in. We had Robert, who's saying it's a little bit of a tease that we can't learn more about treatment plan. Robert, we know you are patience is a virtue. That says awesome presentation. Yeah, not a lot of questions coming in. So and we can always wrap up early. But one thing that I would like to do, kind of running through each of the 4 key products that TeamCare offers again, based on your experience, Ashley, is just talk about how TeamCare is different relative to competitors that might offer a similar solution within each of those. Insights, having an analytics dashboard is, like a step one. It's everyone expects that, and so we provide that. But I'd like for you to talk about maybe what you're seeing or not seeing with some of the other services and products that we have within the platform.
Yeah. Like you said, the insights, the analytics is as part of most programs or other competitors. But the real difference is how we actually move those metrics, how we drive that change. And I'm not seeing any competitors that have the incentives feature to actually really target those specific aspects. And so this is making it super clear. Okay, this is what I'm trying to target. I'm going to incentivize my team for this, and it does all the calculations. And I haven't seen another program that does that. And the last thing I want to do is create another spreadsheet for another bonus system that I have to manually calculate. And so that's the biggest difference for me is it's just streamlines that entire flow, and it's transparent and very clear to the team members. I've seen it several offices, and I've spoken with team members, or I see it on, different Facebook sites that a doctor released a new bonus system, but then they never actually received payment for it, or they didn't know where they were in the process, like for that month, like how close to goal were they. A lot of those numbers were kind of hidden behind closed doors, and they just weren't sure. And so TeamCare just makes that super transparent to everybody. They're aware of what options are available for them, what rewards are available in the My Rewards section. And then if they achieved it, what was actually paid out, what's going to end up on their payroll. So it just makes it super clear and streamlined.
Amazing. So as we wrap up, I want to share a link to a feedback form that we have. I'll drop this in for anyone that's here. We'll also include this in the email with the recap and a link to the recording. But if anyone would like to fill out feedback, we love to continue to make these better. Feedback is a gift. And every month, you can meet us here with Ashley at the end of the month, third Friday of the month. We will be doing a live product demo where we will be going through all of the features at a high level, which is what we just went through. And the first Friday of the month, we will be doing a deep dive into a certain area, what we're calling a master class. And on Friday, September 5th, Ashley will be giving a master class in treatment planning and how you can increase treatment planning acceptance. Ashley.
And saving money on processing fees.
Oh, and saving money on processing fees. What a cliffhanger. Robert, are you okay? I hope you're sitting down for that one.
But if anybody wanted to talk more about the treatment planning and they didn't want to wait, you can always schedule time to talk with me or one of our other teammates, and we can get you set up on that before then if you don't want to wait. Yeah.
Ashley, thank you so much for taking us through this product demo. And thank you everyone for joining us. We hope you have a great weekend.
Have a good one.
Bye.